Yeah, the Erickson brothers.
All right, you guys ready?
Just one brother. They're gonna sell.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Town Council Committee of the Whole regular meeting to order at 6:30 PM. And I'm on to roll call. Council Burrell.
Here.
Council Bordelon, is she online? Council Bordelon's online.
Joined in, yes, hold on a second.
Council Bordelon. Council Bordelon.
Here.
Council Fitzgerald.
Here.
Councilor Good informed me he would not be here this evening. Councilor Jones.
Here.
Council McBride.
Here.
Council Merritt.
Here.
Council Pacino.
That's me.
And Mayor Parker is here. We have 8 out of 9. I will declare a quorum. Going on to calendar and communications. Council Burrell.
I have nothing today.
Okay. Council Bordelon.
Thank you. Just most of the emails that most of the council has received. Let's see what else I have. I just also want to let the council know I'm going to be leaving a little bit early today. I do have a pre-existing commitment that I have to attend. So I do apologize for that, but I'll let you know when I'm stepping away. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Fitzgerald.
Nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Council Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last night, Mayor Parker and I worked or volunteered at the United Way pop-up food bank. This is supported by United Way and the town of Groton. It's held at Thrive 55. We had 106 families came through for food. We have been running this food bank. We're now doing it every other month, and it just continues to increase in people who come. So there's a definite need for food in our community. Earlier this week, led a group of kids, and I will be doing another one on Friday from Parks and Rec, the Park and Rec camp that's held every summer. And we led them this week through the Merritt property. So it was a lot of fun, but from kindergarten to, I think, 5th grade. So those were good. And then also, we had, last time, we thanked all of our services for doing the trees, cleaning the trees. I was involved with GOSA in this past week doing it on our open space property. So we cleaned 4 sites. We had trees that came down in a number of different locations. So it took a crew to go in there and open those trails back up and clean. So it works on the municipal side, and it also works in our open space that trees came down a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councilor McBride.
Nothing to report since last week, so substantive things.
Thank you. Councilor Merritt.
Nothing to report.
Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have nothing to report, other than something you're going to say that we did, so I'm not going to duplicate that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now my turn. So before I get on to the happy points, I'm going to admit that there was something I did that I realized I shouldn't have done. Last week, I permitted a motion to approve an extension of time for one speaker. This motion ultimately failed. However, in reviewing Town Council Rule 11, I recognize that I should not have permitted the motion, as members of the public had already spoken and were not afforded the same opportunity. So we will be following the rules from now on, and I just wanted to make that statement clear. So I attended with Councilor Pacino the change of command ceremony at the Naval Reserve, which was held at the Nautilus Museum. I want to say best wishes to Commander Joseph Perfido on his next endeavor, and congratulations to the incoming commander, Christopher Remore. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Part 2 of my communication is The seawall was mentioned last week, so that's in the city of Groton. The town of Groton Council and the RTM only provided ARPA funding for the seawall. And at this time, I believe you received communications, and I believe Town Manager Burt will make note of that. But the town council, as well as the RTM, will not be providing any further funding for this project, which is within the purview of the city of Groton. Thank you. Town Manager Burt.
I don't have anything to report other than just to confirm the City Mayor Rusk had reached out to me last week just to inform me that the city has no intention of requesting further funds for the seawall.
Thank you. On to approval of the minutes. Councilor McBride, please.
I make a motion for the approval of the minutes, 2026-583, the June 23rd, 2026 minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor McBride, seconded by Councilor Burrell. Any questions or concerns? No? We will be doing roll call vote. Councilor Burrell,
Yes.
Councilor Bordelon,
Yep.
Councilor Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Councilor Jones,
Yes.
Councilor McBride,
Yes?
Councilor Merritt,
Yes.
Councilor Pacino,
Yes.
and I am a yes, so that is 8-0. Before we would move on to new business, I am going to make a statement. Under Town Council Rule Number 5, Section I am requesting that all presentations this evening be limited to no more than 20 minutes. Thank you to everyone who will be presenting. And on that note, I believe we are on page 9 of our packets. And if the Office of Planning and Development and Public Works could please come up. Would you like the presentation first and then the motion, Director Reiner? Counselor
Yeah.
Fitzgerald, please.
Item number 2026-610, Climate Action Plan Endorsement. I make a motion that the town council endorses Climate Ready Groton as the town's first official climate action plan.
Second.
Motion made by Fitzgerald, seconded by Burrell, and we will take the vote after the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, members of the council. John Reiner, Director of Planning, Development, and Public Works. I have some of our partners with us here tonight. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kim Lundgren, founder and CEO of KLA. We supported this project with Fuss & O'Neill.
I'm Alex Maxwell, Senior Principal Planner with Fuss & O'Neill.
So we have a short presentation tonight. We'll definitely stay under the 20 minutes. We'll probably be somewhere in the 10 to 15 minute range. But, so we wanted to talk to you tonight about Climate Ready Groton, our first climate action plan. Good, we got that loaded up there. Excellent. This climate action plan that we've been working on over the past 18 months was partially funded in part by CIP fund from the town, as well as a grant that we got from the Connecticut Deep, which really made this whole initiative possible. This was something that we did a lot of public outreach and engagement on. Some of you were involved in that, and again, we're happy to present this plan to you tonight. So just want to give you a brief kind of overview of the background of how we got here. So Groton has really been focusing on climate action and the things that we want to do as a town since back in 2008, putting together our first task force looking at climate action in 2009 and 10, looking at a lot of our preparedness and how we address things for future efforts. In February of 2011, a task force released its final report with a call of action of what we should be doing and how to reduce some of our energy use, as well as the benefits of preparing for climate changes in Groton. And then jumping ahead to March of '21, a previous town council passed a resolution requiring that we work climate into a lot of our municipal operations and the things that we do to have a more sustainable government. In 2023, we hired our first sustainability manager and really started looking at reaching out to the public and getting more involved to build that public support and buy-in and understand what the community was looking for. And then, tonight, in June 20th of 26, or now we're in July, releasing this plan, getting some public feedback, and then coming to you tonight to talk about what this plan is, what it's not, and how we move forward in the future. So with that, I'll hand things over to Kim, and then she and Alex will kind of tag team some of this presentation, and we'll circle back and have some time for questions at the end.
We do that? Okay, thank you. Okay, so creating Climate Ready Groton. And as was mentioned, this plan is focused on climate action from both perspectives. So we look at the mitigation side, which is how we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change, and then the adaptation side, which is how are we preparing and making ourselves more resilient to the impacts we're already experiencing, as well as the ones that are coming this way. So in order to do that, and having done this work personally for over 25 years, we really want to keep our plan tight. We want to stay focused in on the highest priority actions in key areas that are going to drive those emissions reductions. When there's too many things in a plan, we've seen over the years, they just don't get implemented, or staff get overwhelmed, and it's hard to move the needle. And hearing from this community that they very much wanted an actionable plan that wasn't going to sit on a shelf, you'll see that we have very tight focus areas with very specific goals, strategies, and actions that are going to lead you towards a more resilient future. We start the process by getting the community to identify key principles, and these are used as a filter for the various actions. So it's trying to help us not get too much in the weeds and forget that, hey, equity matters here. Transparency matters here. And so this is a lens, the guiding principles are a lens that we use as we're looking through and helping you finalize all of your actions. The overall structure of the plan is focused on 5 focus areas that are responsible for either greenhouse gas emissions in your community, or they're where you can actually have some benefits as it relates to climate adaptation. And so for this plan, we're looking at buildings and energy, community preparedness and resilience, infrastructure and land use, natural resources and consumption, and transportation and mobility. So very specific areas that the town has pretty significant control over. Alex?
Thanks, Kim. So as Kim mentioned, this Climate Ready Groton plan is what's known as a comprehensive climate action plan. So it addresses both carbon emissions mitigation and climate adaptation, or what otherwise might be termed climate resilience. So on the climate adaptation and resilience side of the plan, the very first step in this process was really trying to get an understanding of not only current but future projected climate conditions across a broad range of climate-related hazards. So I know this is probably breaking the cardinal rule of all presentations with too many words on a slide. But this is just meant to show a snapshot of some of the climate-related hazards that were looked at early on in the development of the plan as they relate to climate adaptation. So we looked at flooding, both inland and coastal flooding, the likely increased intensity in precipitation events, projections and trends with extreme heat days, as well as drought and windstorms. And that all dovetailed into developing a very sound evidence base, really the scientific underpinnings for developing adaptation strategies with the community. So it's important to mention as well, these goals, strategies, and actions that you'll see in the plan really aren't of our own design, but they're really driven by all of the engagement processes that Kim will touch on in a little bit. But really what we tried to do on the kind of more technical side of things was really develop the scientific foundation here. So on the adaptation and resilience side of things, we started with a series of vulnerability assessments on Groton, pulling in downscale data from both state and federal resources. So I see to flip to the next slide. We were really tasked with looking at the vulnerability related to each of those climate-related hazards at 3 different scales. First, with the community-wide vulnerability assessment, pulling in data from the state's Climate Change Vulnerability Index, or CCVI. and then looking at the vulnerability of critical infrastructure throughout the town, and then ultimately honing in on a few of the town-owned properties or facilities as well. And with each of these vulnerability assessments, as you flip to the next slide, we not only wanted to look at vulnerability through the lens of just how exposed an individual area within the community or a facility within the community was to a climate-related hazard, be it flooding or heat or otherwise, but then also, and importantly, how sensitive that area or that portion of the community or that facility may be to that particular exposure, and then importantly as well, looking at any of the latent adaptive capacity that may be inherent. And all three of those factors factored into the way in which we're understanding vulnerability across each of those scales. And so those are some of the variables that went into the vulnerability assessments that I just mentioned. So this is just one little snapshot of one little piece of one of the vulnerability assessments that went into the development of this plan. This is just showing some of the visualizations tied to the community-wide vulnerability assessment when it comes to looking at just one variable, which is flood exposure. So one climate-related hazard here. And what maps like this helped us do, especially early days in working with the citizen advisory group and other community engagement activities, was help visualize where we're seeing not only current exposure to, in this case, flooding, but also future projected flooding conditions as well. And really, this was just used as a conversation starter early days, and ultimately through the community engagement process, really look to ground truth this with members of the community, and then ultimately develop actions that could be used to address this particular vulnerability. And with that, I'll kick it over to Kim to talk a little bit more about the mitigation side of things.
Thanks, Alex. So here we have the results of the greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and this is not too surprising to see. You've got a majority transportation emissions followed by the buildings. It's important to note that Groton Long Point was not included in this analysis. They have their own planning process going on, and so this was focused in on the data you do have and that we were able to extrapolate from different sources. I think that's probably all I need to say, other than this is community-wide, and so municipal emissions are incorporated within this pie, this overall pie here, but when we break it down for municipal, the emissions are less than 2% of overall community. And that's important to understand. That's pretty typical across the US, usually 1 to 3% of what the municipal emissions are. But the role you all play is going to be leading by example in helping drive action in the community, and I'll talk about that in a second. As part of this process, we also conducted what's called a greenhouse gas pathways analysis. So this is taking your greenhouse gas inventory as the baseline and then saying, what's it going to look like to get to, in this case, 90% emissions reduction by 2050. We know we need to move towards net zero. Can we get to 90% by 2050? And that's actually based on our analysis that we came up with that. You'll see here in the blue, that's your transportation opportunities. So when we are able to electrify more transportation, shift to alternative modes, get people out of that single occupancy vehicle, that's when you have opportunities to reduce the emissions from the transportation sector. The orange slides are for residential and commercial buildings respectively, and then the tiny sliver of green is opportunities to reduce in the waste stream. And so this is a pathway to think about and kind of what guides the development of the roadmap. What also guides it, of course, as Alex has been talking about, is the community, town staff as well as citizens. We start with an advisory group, and so it's a mixed group of folks that are bringing different expertise to the table, but all community residents or town staff members, community partners that work with you in certain areas. We had 46 members that were part of this advisory group that were helping guide us. We have them typically focused in on certain focus areas that are their areas of expertise, so they're bringing some specific knowledge to the table. The other side of the engagement coin, of course, is the community-wide and reaching out to, I think it's the next slide, a broad swath of folks. The way we like to approach engagement, again, this is building on, KLA has been around for 11 years, but I personally have been doing this work, as I said, for over 25. And what we hear the most from so many communities before we get started is that we just get the same 20 people at every event. The same people come to all the things and talk, and we have a hard time reaching beyond that. And so a big part of that is how we shape our activities and events and how we're communicating and reaching different folks. So our model, rather than a traditional, we're going to host 2 workshops about climate change, that's not necessarily going to get everyone, because while climate change is an important issue, and while the majority of Americans feel that way, they don't all think about it as their top issue every day. And so we have to try to get folks in places that they'd be interested in coming to. And so what you see here is a collection of events where we got, I believe it's just about 800 folks participating in different events, everything from the bagels for Resilient Groton to bumpers and books, clothing swaps, popsicle in the park, all kinds of fun activities to go find your residents where they might already be. Now we'll move into the plan itself. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we try to keep this as very focused and tight. We want this to be actionable and something your community can move forward on. What you'll see on each of the slides coming up here is we have the focus area, the specific vision that focus area is designed to achieve. We have a set of metrics to track progress. That's super, super important. Greenhouse gas emissions are often considered the top metric for climate action, but frankly, they're not, and it's because they're a lagging indicator. So we don't know if we've hit our reduction target until a year and a half, maybe 2 years later. That doesn't set us up for success to adjust if we need to. So what you'll see throughout these next couple slides and throughout the plan is a set of metrics that can track if you're moving forward in the right direction towards your goals, towards emissions reductions, towards more community resilience. And then in each of these tables, you'll see the sections are broken up by goals, strategies, and actions so that the actions get very specific. In this case, we highlighted the energy benchmarking and reporting specifically for municipal operations. As I noted, that's an opportunity to lead by example, and we've seen that benchmarking and disclosure is a very successful tactic to drive emissions reductions in the building sector. The next one I'll speak about is transportation, which, as you saw and know, is your largest emission sector. And so again, we're looking here, how can we reduce emissions from that sector? We're going to look to change up the kind of fuel that we're using and get people out of their cars. Those are the 2 ways to address emissions pretty much in the transportation sector. And so looking at, in this case, again, another lead by example opportunity to maybe green the fleet a bit more, but also thinking about how are your community members getting around? You have a lot of folks that drive into Groton for their day-to-day. How are we setting them up for success where they don't have to take a single occupancy vehicle, for example? And I'll hand it over to Alex to talk about the remaining focus areas.
Yeah, thanks, Kim.
Oh, okay, wait a minute. Just want to let everybody know that the slides are not in the same order as what we have here.
There, in back of the,
No.
There's 2 sets.
page
Two
40.
sets.
There's 2
No,
sets.
no, I know, but last one was transportation. Transportation was mobility, right? That was transportation you spoke about, so.
We did change them up for the presentation, just so there wasn't like a constant back and forth with Alex and I, so apologies if that, it looks like on the screen is communicating.
Go to page 41, it's the house.
It's in the
If they're
back.
doing that.
It's not, well, that's not.
From 41 on, it's the same
Oh,
order.
they may be looking at the plan.
Oh,
as
you're
opposed
doing
to-
the
You
big
might
one.
be looking
Okay.
at the,
All right, so there's 2 packages, sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
there's a slide deck and then the
Yeah.
full plan itself, I think, got included in the packet.
Yes. So, yeah, in
We're
your
real good with
packet,
one choice.
yeah, the plan is first, and then after the plan is the presentation.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I'll just pick up where Kim kindly left off and cover the last few focus areas.
So if you go to page 42 of your packet, you'll see where we are.
Thanks, John. On the community preparedness and resilience focus area, we had several goals, strategies, and actions identified by members of the community. Again, like Kim mentioned, these are not of our own design. These are really in collaboration with members of the community. And here, the real focus was on trying to prepare for climate impacts and then also be able to respond to and effectively address climate-related hazards. And just one example of an action that was identified in collaboration with the community was creating a neighborhood scale outreach program to support community members with floodproofing of both residential and commercial structures, and also mitigating damages after flood events. The next focus area is on infrastructure and land use. Really, in concert with the community, we developed 2 key goals, really focused on, first and foremost, making sure that the infrastructure within Groton is climate ready and flood resilient, but then also looking at opportunities to improve land use decisions to prioritize sustainable growth. So just one example of an action included in this focus area was conducting an analysis of the PQ stormwater system and really implementing infrastructure upgrades as needed to address some of the persistent neighborhood flooding that was identified in talking to folks as part of those engagement events. And then lastly, on the final focus area on natural resources and consumption, a lot of the goals that revolved as part of this focus area really focused around protection of natural resources, enhancement of ecosystem services, and then embracing the circular economy and looking for actions that can help reduce waste. So just one example of this is, as it relates to more the natural resources protection and ecosystem services, is looking at equitably distributing new street trees across the community, but really prioritizing those plantings in low tree cover areas or areas where you have higher heat indexes, which were foregrounded as part of some of the vulnerability assessments.
Feeling those today.
Yeah, and you would feel that a little bit more today. So with that, I'll just mention, especially for folks that may be watching along at home and maybe looking for where is this plan. So the final plan has been posted on the Greater Groton website. The URL is included on the screen here, as well as linked on the QR code. So that's where to find it on the upper right-hand portion of the web page. And then on the subsequent slide, just before, or the next slide, before turning it back over to John to close us out, I'll just make a brief mention on next steps in implementation. So as Kim kindly outlined at the outset, Climate Ready Groton really is a targeted list of goals, strategies, and actions that were established in partnership with the community. But that's really the starting point. This plan is really the starting point. What happens next is what gets you towards implementation. And so importantly on this slide, we're highlighting a few items here that really help frame how the plan can now be taken from its current state into implementation. And that is first and foremost by looking for ways to prioritize actions. So what you'll see on the slides and then in the packets as well, and in the plan for anyone following along at home is, these lists of goals, strategies, and actions, but importantly, they haven't been prioritized yet, and that will require a town-led approach to looking at which actions may want to be advanced over others. And that'll require input from the community. We often find in our work as well, being opportunistic and looking at available funding mechanisms can also help them determine what actions get prioritized. So that the middle bullet here is really a mention of, part of implementing the plan will be looking to leverage available funding programs, be it at the state or federal level. These include funding mechanisms like Connecticut DEEP's Climate Resilience Fund, which actually funded, as John mentioned, a portion of this plan, as well as the Long Island Sound Ecosystems Grant, which supports the implementation of green infrastructure projects, another key action identified in the plan. And I'm happy to report that these are funding mechanisms that the town is already applying to, and in some cases actually securing grant funds to help implement some of those actions. And then the last note on the slide here is really just a mention of, making sure, and this was an intentional part of the planning process as well. You may have seen in the community outreach slide. We also made sure to get Climate Ready Groton out there in the community as part of some of the POCD or the Plan of Conservation and Development meetings. But it's important that in thinking through the prioritization of actions and then ultimately looking to implement some of the actions in the Climate Ready Groton plan, that it be done so in concert with the implementation of other actions included in some of the other plans that exist across the town to make sure that you can achieve, perhaps multiple goals across several plans in implementing a particular action, and then importantly also trying to avoid, it's not really shown on the screen here, but avoid potential conflicts in implementing different priorities across the different plans. So with that, I'll kick it back to you, John, and close us out.
All right, cool. So again, thanks for hearing us through this. And again, as we look to the future to set some of the priorities for what we do, a lot of what we do, as you know, is very opportunistic. We're coming to you every couple of months of, hey, we applied for another grant, or we're applying for a grant, we got another grant. So thinking about some of the projects that we're working on right now, which we knew were priority projects, like our Learning Lots project that we're working on and starting to wrap up, which is looking at permeable pavement and how we can implement that on town properties around town. Our Mystic Green Infrastructure project, looking at how we can do better stormwater management in the Mystic River watershed. The Fort Hill Homes Green Infrastructure project that we just came to, I think it was last month, to talk about. The Haley Brook Stream Crossing project, looking at culverts and flooding. A resilience hub, which we'll be talking to about 2 weeks from tonight, about another grant that we received. We recently applied for a BRIC grant, which through the feds, to get funding millions of dollars to help retrofit one of our sewer pump stations that is in a flood-prone area that needs help. And these are the types of things that we will often go after and be opportunistic, but also as we're doing that, we're looking at that priority list, looking to you, the council, our Planning and Zoning Commission, and our Conservation Commission as active groups in town that are very involved and invested in this, to get some of that feedback, as well as the expertise that we have on staff. And, when we need help, we work with folks like Kim and Alex to either help prepare these grants and these plans, but it's something that's ever changing, ever evolving. But this is our roadmap for the next 10 years of the things that we should be doing in Groton. So, with that said, happy to entertain any questions from the council, and, appreciate your support to get us to this point.
Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director Reiner and Alex and Kim. In full disclosure, I was the council rep through all the meetings, so I attended every one of these, and they were very professionally run, and so thank you for doing all the work and putting the report together. I just want to focus a little bit. This focuses heavily on emissions and the reduction of emissions, but it doesn't focus a whole lot on the cost of doing all of this. So I think as a counselor with budget responsibilities, we need to be able to pay for these things, and some of this is expensive. So I just want to highlight on a couple of areas. On page 15, which is the building and energy section, there's a chart. I'll let you get to that in the lower left corner. And I'm actually surprised, residential buildings, 93% of our buildings are carbon fueled, commercial buildings is 99%, and you have sort of targets as we kind of move along. Do you have any kind of a sense of, and I know there's some numbers, but just to explain a little bit about what the cost is as we move from carbon fuels to electric, in terms of just what a homeowner can possibly expect over the next period of 30 years that we've outlined this?
Okay. Thank you so much for the question, Counselor Jones. And it's a good one, and it's an important one, and one we get all the time. So the first response is the costs are different depending on who it is, right? So it's hard to put costs into this plan when a cost that's borne by the town might be different than a cost borne by a commercial sector or a resident. You're asking specifically about residential sector. There's other factors that go into that as well that depend on their specific home, the kind of fuel that they're using, their income levels, right? Because there's a lot of different programs. Despite federal changes, there's still a lot of programs that promote weatherization, electrification. We now have the New England Heat Pump Accelerator Grant Program that is out. That is from the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program that was federally run. And that grant is out right now. So it's a big question mark. I can tell you personally, I put in heat pumps in my home. I'm in Massachusetts, so not exactly here. But there are incentives, and Connecticut has a lot of the same incentives that we have in Massachusetts. And so for me, in the size of my home, it was about $30,000 for me to move from oil to a fully electric heat pump. We have 3 heat pumps, and then we did get incentives on top of that. So after the incentives, we were about $20,000 in. I rolled it into a renovation we were doing, and we put it on the home equity line. And so, we're paying like 3% over 30 years kind of a thing. And so it's not to suggest there's not an expense here. What I want the town council to think about is a lot of these decisions are going to be made anyways. Your residents are going to have to make upgrades. Their heating systems will go, and they're going to be paying attention to that. So they're going to be paying tens of thousands of dollars to upgrade. The question is, can we help bring in resources that make that upgrade to a more efficient and a lower emission heat pump be something that makes sense for them? And that's kind of why we try to get out to the community early and have those conversations. But it's hard to give exact numbers for specific homes, and that's why you don't see it specifically here. But when the town is moving forward to implement an action related to that, that's when you can start diving in and maybe get some specifics.
And I kind of hope the town can also be a resource for homeowners and commercial businesses and things on the ways to handle this, grants that are available and all that kind of stuff. Just go to page 21 is the natural resource and consumption chart. And it's on green cover, canopy coverage. And I think nationally the average is somewhere around 30%. Connecticut is, I believe is 60% coverage. And Groton is 67%. So I'm an active member of the Groton Open Space Association, and so I spend a lot of time, as I said earlier, out there trimming trails and cutting grass and all that. So very aware of the canopy that we have here. We're also part of the 30 by 30 plan that Connecticut has, and we're very close to that. So I think we've done incredibly well in our open space and our canopies and our trees and all of that kind of stuff. So, and I've noticed in your chart here, you're keeping it constant, as if we've kind of peaked at maybe where we're going to be with our canopy. But can you just comment a little bit on that number? Because it is a pretty impressive number.
So this was pulled directly from your tree management plan, and you are at a very good percentage for tree canopy cover, so it is something to be proud of. I think while it looks like we're maintaining, as you know, there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining, right? Trees die, some new ones aren't blooming as much as they need to, or they die too young, and so actually maintaining that is work. I definitely don't want us to suggest that it's not to maintain that level, especially, with the examples I just gave. I think that was kind of the decision, that there wasn't more that could be totally done there, or that they couldn't commit to more. I'm gonna let Alex speak to that.
Yeah, I think one of the operative words in there, or phrases in that progress metric, is at a minimum as well. So recognizing that the town already has a really great tree canopy coverage, with plans for future development. You mentioned kind of just maintaining what you have. The idea is to, at a minimum, maintain the good tree canopy that you have. But, as developments are getting realized across town, like really, the idea is to not let it slip below that 67%, because that seemed like an obtainable baseline at a minimum.
Yeah, and then another opportunity that we certainly saw, I know that the city of Groton right now is working on a plan looking at tree coverage and tree canopy in some of their areas that need additional, and even one of our goals that NRC action, or in action 1.2C, is equitably distribute new street trees across the community, looking at areas with low tree cover and high heat indexes. So although we have a great number, because of, I think a lot of it are forested areas, some of our new development, good street trees, there are some areas that are heat islands, and we need to look at those and how can we do better in those areas as well.
And just final, I guess, Director Ryan, this is questions directed to you. You gave us an impressive list of things you're doing and getting grants for, and congratulations and thank you for bringing all those services. Could you pick out of the action items, maybe 3 out of this list of action items that you sort of see on your head, on your timeline, as things that could be done outside of these, but it's coming from the report?
I'm sure I could. Put me on the spot here. I think there are some things that we're working currently into, like our CIPs, things that we go after. And then I think now having this action plan, wrapping this up right at the same time as our plan of conservation and development, it was helpful to get that level of feedback. A lot of what I've heard in my time here is we want to do the best that we can with the minimal economic impact to our residents. So a lot of it really, we go after things from an opportunistic perspective, and how can I not only do it through, grant funds, but also are there things that we can do to start saving money? And some of that is the efficiency of our buildings, lowering our heating and cooling costs. So those are all some of the priorities we start thinking of from an energy perspective. There are some grants out there from energy. There's a lot more grants out there dealing with stormwater, dealing with flooding and mitigation along those lines. So some of it is, hedging our bets and looking at where can we get the best bang for our staff resources and time, as well as the money. And then there are things that we're going to see some of those lower hanging pieces of fruit and come to you of, this is an opportunity we can get funding for, but these are some other things we can't find funding for, but we think it's really important to do. I know long-term, or really medium-term, as we're looking more at our waste treatment plant, at our sewer treatment plant, we spend a lot in energy usage there. And as time goes on, we want to see, are there better ways of doing that? Are there more efficient ways? It's a very energy intensive operation. So that's something that we're thinking about. What levels of our fleet can we electrify? I don't expect our plow trucks to be electric anytime in the near future, but there are other things for some of our vehicles that are just driving around town. Those aren't necessarily our highest priorities. I think we want to be cognizant of our threat to, floods and flood damage, those most vulnerable areas. We think about the entirety of the town. This plan just focused on the town, not on the city, not on Groton Long Point. We partner with those areas, but, flooding impacts, the things we saw this, winter from storms, we want to look at some of those extreme events. And I think those are the things that can really hit us and disable the community in some ways. So not say any particular 3 action items, but.
No, that's a good list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that list. Okay, thank you.
Council Bordelon?
Hold up
Oh,
one
sorry.
second. I went and Pacino'd the box, so I gotta fix it. Wait a minute, I'll get it. Almost there. Oh, might screw that up. Okay, now what's that?
Okay.
Sorry, folks.
Council Bordelon?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I thought the presentation was very thorough, and I found the packet to be very user-friendly to read, so thank you for that. I spent a lot of time on the packet. I revisited it today on my lunch break, and it was kind of interesting. I had some coworkers kind of looking over my shoulder, kind of interested in that themselves. So it had great graphics that drew people in. And there's been a good conversation. I'm definitely a person who's thinking about climate. One of the things I've not involved with is just looking at ways to better Groton from an environmental standpoint, because we are a coastal community and we service, EV, Pfizer, and many other industrial and naval bases, which bring us income, but also do put some type of strain on us as a coastal community from an environmental standpoint. So it's like weighing, where that tax base is coming, but also trying to protect our environment. And so, the great conversation, as far as like looking at ways that people are looking to upgrade. I'm one of those people, right? My house was built in '89, and so I have a roof, I have siding now, and now I'm up to the furnace, and I keep going back and forth. I lived in a modest state. When I bought the house, I thought it was too small because I had 2 teenagers, and now it's perfect because it's just me and my husband, and we don't need it downside, so it's actually become the perfect size. But looking at that, like how many heat pumps, I have tapes, so the walls are kind of a bit more narrow, you have to get the pump around that. So I'm torn. And so, I was looking at different towns and different initiatives. Our power source is Eversource and Groton Utilities here, and looking at some of those incentives. The biggest thing is like what is going to be more cost effective, but what's also going to be more environmental, friendly for the community. But so many people are stuck with the decision of what can I afford, and they need heat and they need cooling. The other caveat is, thinking I live in the city side, but I'm right on the most furthest line to the town. One stone throw away at Catherine Kalowski, and I'm in the town line. I literally live between the line. And my neighborhood is a neighborhood that was built in '89, where they tore down all the trees and just built all these houses, and they just made it look like this. We're going to build, so let's demolish it all and build up this big enterprise, and didn't put the trees. And so my yard, I noticed, like, I'm trying to look at what trees can I plant here that won't affect tight in the ground and won't affect my foundation, but I could use some tree coverage. So some of those types of things are great initiatives and re-looking at it, even though our tree coverage is pretty high. There's certain sections where it's still struggling. So my neighborhood included, but I do fall on the city side. There are other neighborhoods like mine in the town. So maybe there's some protections we should as a town make sure from development that so much trees should remain when building, right? And they take them away, what should we put back? And then looking at incentives.
Council Bordlawn?
Yeah.
That's your time.
Sure, I'll just end with it, looking at ways to make sure people can afford the upgrades to an environmental friendly. But thank you, I really love the presentation, that's what I want to say.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
Just to help with my reading of it, it seems like some of the action items, and it seems better if this is the case, that they don't have like an end, an end date number or a goal, but they're kind of continuous governing philosophies for the town. Is that correct? And one that jumps out is incorporate heat mitigation measures into design guidelines and zoning review processes. That's just kind of a component of all future changes that we're co-signing on as philosophies that the town of Groton would like to advance?
Correct. I don't think there are a lot of these in here that really have like an end date on them. A lot of them are continuous goals, philosophies that we should be adopting. Some of them are very specific items, but a lot of it is how can we keep doing and integrate these thoughts and processes into our policies, our regulations, our budgeting process.
Yeah, I would just add that you're looking at, once the town decides which actions they're going to prioritize, that's when you can start putting a little bit more meat on the bones of these actions based on the funding you have available, the situation, the overall timing. And so you can start defining this out a little bit more. But as you're saying, yes, this is kind of the general principles and guidance, the guidelines you want to follow.
Yeah, and I'll just add, Councilor, one of the focuses in establishing these goal strategies in action in the plan is not to think about the goal that needs to be implemented in 2050, but trying to bring it to the current and say, over the next 10 years, these are really actions that you can take exactly when they happen and for how long they last. That's what Kim was mentioning in terms of like that needs to be established through the prioritization of actions, looking at available funding, staff capacity, things of that nature. So intentionally, to get to your question, they don't have a timestamp on, must be completed by X date.
I appreciate the response. That seems like the better way to do it than kind of checking them off the list as more just guiding principles for us. So and I appreciate the presentation. It's just very well organized and just kudos to just the visual appeal to it. So I really, it's a sharp presentation, so I appreciate the work you put into it.
Thank you.
And that's all for me.
Okay. Any other first time? Councilor McBride?
Thank you, great presentation, thanks for the detail. It really is a great presentation. The only question, I agree with Councilor Jones in that the real question I think is going to become the dollars down the road and how costly all these are, because it's overwhelming. I can't imagine the millions of dollars that will cost. So it leads me to another question. We had discussed the possibility of implementing a stormwater, and I'm not for it or against it, I'm just saying we discussed it. I'm wondering if Town Manager Bird has any update on if that's a feasibility at all to look at.
I could actually update you on that. So we had gotten a grant through the Council of Governments. We're working with a consultant right now. They're doing kind of a feasibility assessment, looking at a stormwater utility townwide as part of our Mystic Green Infrastructure Project. We're also going to be looking at whether or not we could do a stormwater utility just in the Mystic River watershed. So those are still underway. We'll be coming to talk to the council about those sometime in the next 2-3 months, I think, to give you an update of the cost, the feasibility, ideas and thoughts on it. And again, if it's something you want to do or not want to do. Because again, when you think about those priorities, what's impacting the most amount of people, the extreme storms, the flooding, and we know most, like downtown Mystic, where we see a lot of flooding, the more we can prevent the rainwater from the whole watershed coming down during a flood event, if we can slow it down through some better stormwater practices, that will be very helpful on those really eventful days. And similar to a lot of our other coastal areas or riverine areas, how we can prevent that water all from hitting, the end area at once. So long story short, we'll be coming back to you over the course of the next few months to talk to you about that stormwater utility with an assessment on that.
Great, thanks for the update. One other question regarding reduction of solid waste. Are you able to provide any update on I think the biodegradable incinerator in Preston, is that something that Groton will be able to utilize? The aerodynamic or aero, I forget the exact name of it, but I guess it's some new system they have up in Preston that's going to help with our solid waste. It's going to be split into 3 categories instead of 2, or I don't have a lot of information, anything you can provide would be helpful.
So perfect segue. On July 28th, the chairman of the SCARA board will be coming to talk to you for 15 minutes or less about some initiatives that they're working on and talking about our transfer station. So we'll be talking to you about that in 2 weeks' time. So perfect question. Wow.
Thank you. That's all. Thanks.
Any other first time before I go in second? Counselor Merritt and then Counselor Pacino.
Yes, I'm looking at this remark of 60% of Groton residents are serviced by public service curbside collection provided by the town or fire districts. What parts of the town is this? I'm not aware of that. I'm aware of what the fire districts do. I think we only have one that provides their own curbside pickup, is the City of Groton Fire District. The
Yeah.
rest of us pay for our service, either through taxes or private bills.
So this was something I know my team investigated pretty thoroughly, and I'll be honest, when I looked at that, I said, what is this? And they said, yes, this actually is the case. I'm pretty sure we have the source was just communication with them. Sorry, that's why I'm trying to get to the back.
I believe it all goes to the incinerator in Preston, number one. That's where the city hauls theirs to.
Yeah. I think all this is simply doing is providing a by the numbers to let you know that only 60% of residents are actually served by a public curbside collection, and that others are finding another way to move their waste.
Well, that would be saying the City of Groton Fire District is the 60%.
Well, it says provided by the town or fire district.
The town doesn't provide.
Yeah. I could follow up on that. That is, sorry, I was not prepared for that question. I apologize. I can get that information back to John to pass along to you. My analysis team could tell you exactly. And also, we do have the file with the communication.
And that was from a direct communication from SCARA, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was them referencing like private haulers as well as the fire districts. But we'll get back to you on that.
Confirm
Yeah.
Council Merritt, all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Borderline mentioned something that I want to follow up on. There are plenty of communities here that don't have any trees. And trailer park, mobile home parks and such. Is there a point of contact where somebody can call and say, hey, look, what kind of trees can I put in that's not going to mess up infrastructure, utilities, or my foundation? I mean, I don't know if it's you, but do you know who somebody could call to plant the right trees?
It's something we can look into. We try to work in partnership with others around. I know, again, I said before, I think the city of Groton was doing a grant-funded project right now, looking at some tree plantings in areas around town. I'm not sure if there's any services that we currently offer, none that jump to mind of recommending where people can plant trees, because there's a lot that goes into it. You want to make sure you're not digging, crawl before you dig. You want to certainly do that if you're digging into the ground. If it's on property that you own or is it in the right-of-way? If you're going to be doing it in the right-of-way, you probably need to be calling Public Works. If it's on property or private property, you can do it. If it's on leased land, like it might be in a manufactured home park, you probably need to be working with the owners of that and seeing what you can or can't plant. We do have lists of trees that are native trees that we recommend that are within like our regulations for development. So I don't know if any of that would help. But if that's something that's a priority, we can start looking at that as well as something, you know, as future grants come up.
Yeah, I just think most people have no clue
Yeah?
what kind of tree that they, that's going to work for their situation, or what is indigenous to the area. But a lot of people just desire some shade, and they want to plant something that's going to grow quickly enough to provide that shade that they're going to enjoy rather than just their grandchildren. And I got one other question. On page 32 in the packet, just says climate vulnerability in Groton. And in the legend on this, it has the PQ Bridge neighborhood highlighted. But on page 35, it is not. Could you give me a little clarification on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if you can all flip to the slides there. The short answer is, within the scope of this work, from the grant-funded side of things, we also did a preliminary stormwater assessment of that neighborhood in particular. So that graphic that got cycled into the PowerPoint presentation, not necessarily the final plan, I think still had that area highlighted because we had used this in some prior communication about just that small piece of work for that neighborhood. But that's not to suggest that other aspects of the town weren't looked at as part of the vulnerability assessment. The only areas of exclusion are those that, in that graphic, if we had it up on the screen, were the hatched red areas, which highlighted the city and GLP.
Okay. I thought that there was, because it wasn't hashed. You're right. It wasn't red and hashed. I just thought it might have a different plan, because that's a flood area that we're all familiar with.
And, you know, again, that's an area that we just received a grant to look at, doing a deeper dive into that. So sometimes we know that there's funding opportunities out there. When we're doing projects like this, we might take a little bit of a deeper dive into something, knowing that's going to help us set up some data to apply for that grant, which I think was around $200,000 that we got.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Council Bordelon, for your second turn.
Thank you. I just want to thank Councilor Ficino for his follow-up on that. I appreciate, his words in relation to the trees. And again, after reviewing this, some of it is just initiatives and education, is a very tangible, inexpensive goal that can be rolled out, across different towns and different things that I've researched. Like I said, they partnered with a local nursery, for example. I'll just throw Holdridge's as an example of one. I'm not saying they did this, but other towns have used something like them. And why did it work? Well, people came out and they're getting business, but they were educating the people on which trees to buy that would help with storm water runoff, as well as what trees could be planted close to foundations, as well as what trees would not affect the power lines and what height and, what would be good for their yard, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's so many things, and, I appreciate all of this thought, because a lot of people go down to, what is this going to cost? And for me, you can't put a price tag on health and well-being in the environment. That's what we have to protect. So that's extremely vital to me. So I'm excited to see this roll out, and in what way it will roll out is obviously to be seen. But I think this is a great tool to use, and things as simple as, like I said, having somebody come down from a nursery to be available to help people. And towns have even bought 100 trees and said the first people that show up, and you pick up a tree. And other incentives and partnerships that we can create with these other places. So myself, I've been doing that investigation on my own, but again, education, like people don't understand what is out there. And I don't want to say they're not educated, it's just not on their forefront. Like you said, people that don't want to come to these meetings, like to be involved, they don't understand what's out there, how to ask those questions. So I think if we could find that education pool, it would be great. But again, thank you for this presentation. I found it to be very thorough. I found it very intriguing, and I thank you guys for presenting, and I look forward to seeing more and ways that we can live with EV, live with Pfizer, and live with the naval base in a harmonious way. Because not only will that tree prevent shade and heat in the heat area, it will help the runoff for flooding and basins. Thank you.
Thanks, and those are items that we can continue to look at and see if there are programs out there, grants available to maybe partner with, some of the local landscaping businesses and others like that to buy bulk trees and see if we can do something with an education, some outreach, how to do it and get things happening. Again, we have some staff capabilities to do things like that as we're juggling other priorities, some of the grants that we're doing. So, yeah, we can certainly look into those types of things moving forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Burt?
I just wanted to mention another resource. Eversource has quite a bit of information on guidance for plantings to not interfere with utilities, as well as guides to native plants. So, some good information.
Thank you.
Point of information.
Your point of information?
I think through you to the town manager, that's great stuff, and maybe it's just something as simple as sharing it on our page as an action, just to kind of get it out there. I can't speak for everybody else. I know I can be lazy, and sometimes if it's already there, they can find it. So I thank you for that. Is there a way we can post some of that stuff?
I'm sure we could.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, you want a second term?
Yeah, one more question.
Council Pacino for a second term.
Just one more question, and this is mostly to Town Manager Burt. There's two alternatives here. Town Council endorses Climate Ready Groton as the town's first official climate action plan, or alternative two, no action. If we choose alternative one, this isn't necessarily writing a blank check, because every action is going to have to come through us for its funding anyway.
Certainly, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to.
I definitely endorse option one.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I wasn't sure if that's what everybody was knowing. All right, thank you.
Okay. Now on to roll call vote. Council Burrell?
Yes.
Council Bordelon?
Yes.
Council Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor McBride?
Yes.
Councilor Merritt?
Yes.
Councilor Pacino?
Absolutely.
And I am a yes, so that is 8-0. Thank you. Thank you for coming out this evening.
Thank you very much, and we'll be, bringing some of these actions to you in the near future through other grant applications and talking through, what we want to be implementing through this plan. And one thing I didn't state, I did want to introduce, we have a new sustainability resiliency specialist, Lisa Noriega. She is here in the back of the room, new addition to the team, and will be helping us implement this plan as time goes on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much.
Okay. Our next agenda items on page 48. And this is a presentation by the Parks and Recreation Commission. And there's no motion. Good evening. If you can introduce yourself?
Sure. Do you guys have the presentation too, or do I need to present it?
Oh, we have the presentation.
It's in the packet.
It's in the packet.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thanks for having us. I'm Mike DeFranco. I'm the chair for the Parks and Rec team. We also have with us Elizabeth and Terry in the back over here. So we have a pretty short presentation, just 5 slides. We wanted to come kind of talk a little bit about, and I'll just dive right into it. So really kind of the mission statement for the Parks and Rec, which is kind of on the first slide there, is will provide the community participation input into local government and facilities and quiet decisions, and really do kind of have an all-inclusive type park and, provide parks and services for the residents. So really the purpose of us coming here today was to allow us as the commission opportunities to gather community input when we're considering proposed use, reuse, new use, sale of town-owned land. We kind of toyed with coming here and doing a presentation, writing a letter. We kind of had some sub-meetings saying, hey, what do we do in the past with old lands, and kind of had some different sub-bars. So we decided to do a quick, simple PowerPoint to go through why we think we want to be able to be consulted when we have, all these town lands, and we'll get into it a little bit here. So really, we understand that there's needs for development in the town and open space. There's all over the state, there's need for housing, right? It's a thing. We really want to find a balance where we could complement each other for, having open space and having housing, and, having the open space equal what the people really want in that area. So there is a bunch of redevelopment or abandoned properties around the town, right? So we obviously want to enhance those and not just have eyesores all over and then have to pay for them. In some cases there are, upkeep to those properties that, don't bring us a lot of value. We really want to understand how we're using them today and needs in the future areas. And I'll give an example in a couple slides of how that was done in the past with an open space that had come to a previous Parks and Rec team. I was not at that point. So really, what our asking is that you come to us for any space for redevelopment before it's considered to go out for sale or bid or redevelopment, to say, hey, was there any potential use for open space that you can recommend to us that maybe we can consider during that action plan? We kind of came up with a bumper sticker here saying, hey, we can compete or complement. We'd rather complement each other. So some of the guidance we kind of use to make our recommendations, there's been a lot of the Parks and Rec, not just commission, but under Mark has done a lot of studies recently, which has been pretty good. We've had a lot of baselines and a lot of stuff that we can make decisions off of, in fact. So kind of if you look at the master plan that was produced in 23, there was a park assessment done about a year later, complete streets and bike pedestrian plan, and there was a children's kind of outdoor bill of rights saying, hey, children should be outside playing. There was a whole thing that came around. You guys may have seen that. And in the presentation, if you have it digitally, we put hot links, so if you wanted to pull those up, you could. Also, we've had some community feedback going around in parks, going to different areas to talk to people, here and there through the last 2 years. So kind of recommendations from the studies, and this is not from the Parks and Rec. These are kind of what was in the takeaways from some of the studies. Build a stronger local social connections with the community to get identity. More park uses and events can attract visitors to the community. Facilities, rentals, and programs can generate revenue. That can be a tricky one, but expanding access to underserved populations. We do have some areas up kind of by the subbase that are kind of not community park friendly, if you look, we'll say, where other communities have, parks in the communities, and that area is kind of more lacking. So how can we kind of equal that out? People like that type of amenity for, housing developments. Creating inclusive spaces and services and kind of protection of natural assets. And you heard a little bit of that previous to us, but, how can we not even just maintain the park, but protect them too, right? There's some washout. If you look at Pequannock Plains, where a lot of flooding occurs, how can we, if we're going to invest in the park, how can we make it so that it stays nice and doesn't deteriorate? So kind of some of the opportunities. Good examples of success we've had. So there was a large portion of Flanders Road that was originally going from a data center that was proposed, and this was a while ago, when the previous parks team had been asked, hey, what about that space? What, from an open space perspective, would you do? They had found out that there was a neighborhood there that used it for passive rec, such as walking dogs, hiking paths, stuff like that. It was an open land, so that kind of told us, hey, that area really wants an open space where people can kind of do, maybe not hiking, but a walking type thing. So maybe not a tennis court, but a walking thing. So that's what people used it for. So that was community feedback that came in. There was another parking lot by Route 1, and the Parks and Rec said, hey, we didn't really have any use for it for open space. So if the town wanted to do something with it, go for it. So missed opportunities we kind of said is missed is the William Seeley School, now the Trident Square. Wasn't a lot of input from the Parks and Rec at all. And Pleasant Valley School, looks like it's sold for apartment-style housing, but there wasn't a lot of input from an open space perspective, what might be recommended to go there from a P&R perspective. We think some future opportunities of properties out there, we don't know what's happening with them. We're not coming in here to say, sell them, don't sell them. We're just saying, if you're considering a use, these are ones that we would ask you to come to us and say, hey, give us a recommendation if you're planning to do something with them. SB Butler, Mystic Oral School, that's not really a town-owned property, but Mary Morrison School in Colchester. So Colchester kind of has a plan in place for fields and things like that, so that's, I think, been vetted, we'll say, and part of the strategic plan. Recommendations and takeaways, kind of our last slide here, that we'd be given the timely notification so we can, have a couple weeks, couple months to go out and gather community input and feed that back to you guys so you can make a good informed decision as a town council, how to proceed with those lands, and then incorporate that feedback into future decisions for those properties. That's kind of what we're asking for. Yeah. I don't know if there's questions or.
Council Bordelon? Can't hear you. Can you try again, please? Can you try again, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that, my earbud fell out. No, thank you for your, coming and talking. I appreciate it. I served on the property reuse committee that looked at and drafted a document and looking at ways that we should consider looking at land and open space and reconsidering it. I served on that with Councilor McBride and several others. And one of the thoughts was is to make sure that, I don't have the document in front of me, but the thought was to make sure that we look at land, because my thing is once you take land and you lose it, you don't get it back, right? And so when we have this in our possession of the town, it's a great opportunity to look at ways that we need it first before, sending it out or selling it. And one of those things was to make sure like we're meeting the needs of the parks and the fields and, other protected areas and parks and neighborhoods where people need recreation space and things like that. So I can appreciate your concern in bringing that forward. And I think it should always be on our forefront in consideration before looking at any land to be sold or out of our own hands. So the land that you spoke of about the data center, which land in particular were you referring to? That's my first question.
So this was, hang on. It was on Flanders Road. Do you remember what that was? I'm going to call one of our commissioners. Do you want to remember what it was Flanders? And do you know where it was on there?
I think it was 0.
So the response was 0 Flanders Road. I don't know where that per se there is, but it sounded like that was a couple of years ago, I think.
I just pulled it up. I can see it. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think that's a great opportunity. While like once interest in data centers turned into a park for its neighbors. I mean, a lot of people came out and spoke, and I think that could be a great area in need for passive recreation or any recreation in general. So again, I look forward to working with you, and I appreciate you coming forward, and I hope that we can include this, even though the property use committee document in its entirety did not go through. My hope was that this was going to be part of the process with looking at town land. So,
yeah.
So thank you.
Yep, and our intent wasn't to say, all or nothing. It was, hey, it could be partially put in for some park rec use and then partially used for other things that, could benefit the town or sold or whatever. So it wasn't just a all or one. It was how can we synergy them together, understanding that there's, multiple uses for a space.
Absolutely, and there's a way that you can delineate out. I've seen other towns do it when I was on the property use committee and I was doing my research, is where towns would say, here's A land, here's B land, here's C land, and they delineate it out and they go through it, mark the rec, no, doesn't work well, next to a busy road, great for a soccer field, right? Or great for sale, like really check down the list. I know there's a push for housing, but these people are gonna need open space and recreation. And as we live here and stay here, we need space to be able to roam, and not everybody can get on a hiking trail. So, it's vital, and it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, as you stated. It's just a mere consideration, as the way I see it, or a diplomatic way in reprocessing our thinking, is how I see it. So, thank you.
Council Merritt?
Yes, looking this over under opportunities on page 53, I just have one question. Parking lot size area by Route 1, could you specifically state where that is?
That was zero, they said zero
No,
Flanders.
that was the second one, though.
Oh, that one? Oh, the other one.
We
Can
get
you
back to
please come up, because that would probably be easier?
Do you want to?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
asking her to come up. And please state your name for the record. Hi, please state your name.
Elizabeth Hogan, member of the
And-
commission.
Thank you.
So the parking lot, so the Flanders Run was zero Flanders, the parking lot one, and this was before me, I think this was,
Yeah, it was a very small parcel near the new development with the townhomes. I don't know the number, but it was adjacent to a parking lot. And it just did not have a recreation use, so we passed on that one.
I'm not sure I know what you're speaking of.
Mr. Burt, do you happen
It's-
to know?
I'm not sure what it was.
Okay.
Do you know where it is, John?
Do you remember the timeframe, year-wise, or, was it like 5 years ago, I remember?
Okay.
The corner, you know where the corner of, you know where the spot is?
Yes.
It's north of there and on the,
I believe that's town-owned property already?
that was, and we were asked, the commission was asked if we saw any use for it. And because it was so small and somewhat isolated, we did pass on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Franco. Mr. DeFranco, what current role does the Park and Rec Commission play in looking at land in the town?
I'll take my cut at what I think we do, right? So like, to me, like there's been some studies or recommendations, how could we develop stuff? I would say the current way we would do it is based upon some of the studies and the needs that came out of them, from some of like the new park development, or new park like making or redevelopment of a park, we would recommend via CIPs.
How do you, it's more, how are you currently, what are you currently doing? What do you do?
Not your proposal.
Not your proposal. What do you do currently with, and maybe Town Manager Burke can answer this question, but what do you currently do with determination on land?
The focus we have right now is on District 4, because with the closing of the schools in that area, especially for Groton to the west of Route 12, there is virtually nothing left. There's no open space. We do have the Nautilus Overlook, which is on Old Military Highway, which is not pedestrian friendly. And we have a small neighborhood park in Windward Passage, but that's kind of hidden in a neighborhood. So right now, people are using Pleasant Valley Road because it was set up to be a multi-use path. But once the construction begins on the apartments of the site of Pleasant Valley School, I'm really concerned about whether that one amenity is going to be usable.
So I guess I'm just trying to determine, we've just recently, we did the William Silly School, we did the Pleasant Valley School, we're doing Groton Heights. Have you played a role in making an opinion on them or offering advice on them, or?
We have not.
And are you looking to get more involved in that process? Is that what you're trying to do?
I would say yes, like, if we're considering doing something with the Williams Hill School, for example, right? Come to us and say, hey, is there a recommendation from a Parks and Rec perspective of, is there any Parks and Rec, open space, sports, fitness, whatever use for that, seen from the Parks and Rec based upon the master plan? Is there any recommended use for there? Or people in that local area want to see X, Y, Z in that local area? I think our goal would be to go out and do some of the polling for you, come back with some, hey, our recommendation would be to nothing, this type of amenity here, this type of walking space here, whatever, as a recommendation to say, hey, we'd want to see that there. Obviously, it takes money, right? So like, if it's the town doing it, it would be maybe a CIP we'd recommend, but if it's considered for sale, it could be something where you might consider, hey, terms and condition of sale might include this. It would give you better information as a council to say, hey, if we're consider a reuse that is not town-owned, could we put that as a stipulation, so to
So
speak?
you're
or-
sort of thinking of it as an advisory role.
Yes.
in-
Absolutely.
Yes, 100%. You guys would make the final decision. It would be us to give you some information to be able to do that.
I'm a little concerned. I think our property reuse agreement has been working pretty well. We're able to move our properties forward, and we're seeing good positive results, and which is to get them back on the tax rolls and things. So I'm just a little concerned of where you fit in there, and it's another sort of, authority in the middle of all that kind of stuff. So I'm a little concerned on that, and that's sort of what I'm
And we
expressing.
don't have any intention of holding things up. It's just before something's put out to offer, that Parks and Rec get a chance to review it, check it against what our priorities are, and then make a recommendation back for the,
Is there a mechanism in the town that allows that kind of thing to happen?
Mr. Burt?
The current policy, we have a list of, we have that first level committee that I chair and all the department heads are part of. And one of the specific things we look at is use for things like parks or open space or other town uses. Mark Berry, of course, is, active in that, and he could always solicit input from the Parks and Rec too. I just want to make sure when we go into our RFP process, though, that we don't get people's hopes up, we don't slant the results. So I'd be I think we'd have to really watch how we would do this.
Right. I just think we have to be careful in what we do and the role that you potentially could play in something like this. So I don't disagree that it's nice to get opinions from all parties, but I just want to we spent a lot of time trying to put this process together and with the town manager and other department heads. I just want to be careful about how that sort of proceeds. So I thank you for coming and presenting, and I'll just keep listening.
Okay,
So-
and if you had a recommendation of, if we do proceed doing this and we have that opportunity, we should go to you guys or reuse committee, like, if there's someone we should inform, or like it would go to, so we don't hinder the process, we're willing to, work with that group or body if that's a desire.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other hands before I go to second? Council Pacino?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In your research, have you found out how many acres are on the Flanders Road site that Groton Town owns?
it was some time ago, and I don't remember what the acreage was.
I think it was in the 17-acre range somewhere. That was,
Sounds about right.
not big, but there was, people had created their own Frisbee golf course there, and then it spilled onto the private land. That was going to be one of the entrances to the privately owned property. So wooded there with some kind of trails through there.
Okay. My next question would be, do you know how to find a list of all the town-owned properties?
I can find out on the line.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get I don't know how to do it, but I think you can do it on the GIS.
Yeah.
Could I just interrupt, please?
Yes.
If your Conservation Commission a couple of years ago put together a list, and I believe they keep it maintained, of different town-owned properties and what they think the different uses could be. So there's quite a bit of work done on that already.
I believe that's on the website, right? I think we had discussed it. That was a vote we had.
I would imagine, but I'd want to double check.
So with that little bit of knowledge, that's awesome. Wouldn't that be a better place to start than to have us ask you for information? You can already have all the town-owned properties and look at them and then make recommendations
We could definitely do that.
through Mark Berry,
We could do that.
you know?
Take a couple months, look through the whole list and give a large summarized recommendation. We can gladly go do that.
Because we know what the needs are.
I'm sorry?
We know what the needs are,
It-
so we could do some matching that way.
Mr. Burt?
It probably warrants speaking at least to I believe Larry Dunn's still chairing the Conservation Commission. He's very familiar with that list, the work they did. Might warrant, talking with him and, what they've learned looking at those properties.
And my last question, the missed opportunities on this list. You get William Seeley School and Pleasant Valley School. The William Seeley School is going to have a park on the west side of 12, opening soon to the public. And the Pleasant Valley School will also have a park on the west side of 12, open to the public when that project is complete. What did we miss?
Well, I think in the case of William Seeley, that was an add-on to the project. That was my understanding. But I'm waiting to see it developed.
I mean, I can give another example too, like there's a community I live in Deerfield Ridge, they made an expansion community, right? There's been a lot of back and forth with the developer, we'll say, but there's 2 houses left to go in and, learn that the town is not providing permits out because the park has not been built yet. So, there hasn't been total agreements, right? It's the, like she said, it happens, but it happens after the initial, like, signature sign out, right? It's an afterthought type thing rather than an upfront, like, let's set expectations.
What property was that you were just mentioning? I missed it.
So the Deerfield Estates, it's kind of where 184 meets Pumpkin Hill Road. There was kind of like 3 phases built back in the 90s, and there's a phase that got built maybe 5 years ago. I mean, the
Okay.
sidewalks, all the public utilities still not turned over to the town because the contractor has
All right.
problems, but that's a separate topic.
Thank you very much.
Council Bordelon for your second turn.
Thank you. For me, I mean, everyone has a different opinion. I mean, we're all 9 different counselors, so I'm only speaking for myself. But as a person who was part of that property reuse committee, which was my recommendation to move forward, and thankfully Councilor McBride chaired it so nicely. The thought about that was to bring more people around the table. I know it was said that our property use committee system now is, running so smoothly. Not every counselor voted for that particular style that's there. It's what we have. But there's always opportunities for improvement, and one of the best things is that we should always be looking at open space through the lens. I heard it stated that we were worried about the RFPs and all that. We should be adding the rec department, like many other towns do, and for resources for schools, for the police department, for any town use purposes. That should be talked about in a group, in a committee, way before we're even thinking or an RFP is written. So it wouldn't affect an RFP or a developer if we're doing the organic groundwork early. And that's and I would love to see more of that, because if there's a need for our town, and it was stated we need to get out of the tax rolls, okay, that's great. But if there's land that can be used and our plan is to build X, Y, and Z for infrastructure for our own town purposes, it's an opportunity then to make sure, because you're not going to get it later. It wouldn't make sense to buy land later for the same purpose. So I just appreciate you guys bringing this up, and I think there is an opportunity, and we should listen. And I don't think we should be afraid of the change or an opportunity that, it's changing the current RFP. As I stated, not everybody was in agreement, and some people wanted more detail, which would have brought you guys around the table a little bit sooner and more aggressively before disposing of land or deciding to sell land. So I appreciate your guys' willingness to speak up and, look into that. I think there are some missed opportunities in our community, and I think we need to think of that, because long after we're gone, this land is going to be here, and we want to make sure that we're developing it, but we're also making sure we're using it in a way that's lucrative to the people who are going to live here. So we can build a lot of new housing, but if there's nowhere for people to go, we're kind of not doing a service to our community. So I think there is a need to be more aggressively speaking about this earlier on before it's even proposed to sell. So that's what I have to say, and I appreciate your comments, and I wish that the council could consider a more productive way to do this in a more organic fashion. It's not a matter of, oh, you, them, us. It's a matter of, just like in your own house, you look at what you have for assets before you get rid of them, right? You decide what you need first in your own community, your own home. It's the same thing for the town, looking at ways to make sure we're taken care of first before moving
Council
beyond
Bordelon,
that.
your time.
So thank you. So thank you again for coming.
My turn. Thank you guys for coming out this evening. Heard your concerns, and as the commission, you probably should go through, no, we would like, for me, I would like you guys to go through Mark Berry with your concerns, and he can bring it forth to the town council. Right now, you guys put down future opportunities. Mary Morrison is off the table, so that's not for us to make a decision on. That's still under the school. SB Butler is not on the radar right now at this time. Claude Chester has already got plans for it, and Mystic Oral School is a state property, and we are not touching that. From my perspective, we're not touching it. We don't own the land. So if the state wants to do something with it, that's up to the state, and they'll make a decision on how they want to proceed on everything. I hear your concerns. I see what you've recommended. But most of your stuff goes through Parks and Rec. You guys meet and you bring forth your information to Mark Berry, correct? Director Berry?
We do.
And actually, this presentation, we had reviewed with Mark Berry because we felt as a commission we needed to speak out.
Okay. So currently, right now, but most of your information goes through the director who brings it to us, correct?
To me and then us, yeah.
Oh, I mean.
To me first, yeah.
Did I say it backwards?
You said to the council. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but you know what? Let me rephrase that. Goes from you guys to Mark Berry to town manager, and he brings it to us. So I like the current process as it's worked with everyone else when they have to bring forth everything. We do have a property reuse plan in effect. And we're going to continue, as far as I know, nobody's asked for anything, it's going to continue. We value your opinion, but it's got to go through the proper channels.
Okay. Thank you for your
Okay.
time.
Thank you. Council Bordelon, did you have your hand up for a reason?
No, I'll take it down, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's next? Oh. Counselor Jones, could you please read? Did we do the connectivity? No, we did not. Actually, it's Counselor Pacino on page 58, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to be reading the motion on this. The motion is to recommend a resolution to authorize the town manager or his designatee to accept the community conductivity grant in the amount of $141,791 and refer the item to the RTM per Rule 6.5.3.
Second. Jones?
Motion made by Pacino, seconded by Jones. Director Berry.
Good evening, Mark Berry, Director of Parks and Recreation. I'm here requesting authorization for the town manager to accept $141,791 for a community connectivity grant. So why is this project needed? The Crosstown Greenway was officially designated in 2022 by the state of Connecticut, but it currently lacks any type of cohesive wayfinding system. While many segments already exist, installing consistent signage to make the greenway easier to use, improve safety, and increase awareness of the trail system. This project directly implements recommendations from the 2023 Recreation Master Plan. Public input identified trails and pathways as one of the highest future needs, and was also one of the most commonly used recreational amenities. So improving trail connectivity, again, is one of the community's highest future recreational needs, and this project responds directly to that. So how does this project benefit Groton residents? The project improves access to recreation, encourages walking and bicycling, promotes healthy lifestyle, and strengthens connections between neighborhoods, parks, schools, and employment centers. Consistent wayfinding reduces confusion and helps users remain on designated trails, identifies trailheads and access points, and just provides clearer orientation. This is not a new trail construction project. The grant funds the development, fabrication, and installation of wayfinding signage. The grant funding is based on the estimated cost to finalize the wayfinding plan, develop the signage, fabricate the signs, and install them throughout the Crosstown Greenway. The project is expected to include trailhead identification signs and directional wayfinding signs, which were included in your packet. The town is working collaboratively with all affected landowners to refine the branding and signage plan and to obtain necessary approvals before installation. There is no local match required. The community connectivity grant will fund the eligible project costs. At this time, the project is expected to be completed within the grant funding provided. The project timeline following grant acceptance, staff will finalize the branding and signage guidelines with participating landowners, complete design and permitting as necessary, and then procure fabrication services and install the signage. Staff respectfully recommends approval of the resolution also authorizing the town manager to accept the community connectivity grant for the Crosstown Greenway wayfinding project. And happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Counselor Jones and then Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Berry, for putting this grant forward and for doing this. I can speak from personal experience as being one of the first people to have actually walked this trail and using some printouts from a PDF of the loose trail and trying to figure out where this trail went and getting lost several times as I worked my way through.
Yeah.
This will be much needed, and it'll be a nice addition to the trail systems that we have in town, which we already excel in a lot, and they're great, and they're all marked except for this one. So this will be just a nice addition to a nice long trail. I think it's about 20 miles when you walk the whole thing.
Yeah, it starts.
It's fairly long.
It is pretty long.
It's pretty
yes.
long, and it goes
Yep.
from the Nautilus
Yes.
Museum all the way to Old Mystic and
Yes.
follows basically the perimeter of
Right.
Groton. So it's you guys are, the Parks and Rec put in a lot of effort into mapping this out, and I commend
Yes.
you for doing that. Do you have a sense, just timeline, of when you'll have the wayfinding put into place?
Yeah, so we're looking to refine it a little bit now. We're working with the city, we're working with GOSA, Avalonia, the town. We're looking at refining the existing logo that was developed on kind of a high conceptual level. And then some of it is on state roads, which is going to require getting permits from the state to place signs, and I expect this is going to be a multi-year project.
Then I might just recommend, and you do already have these maps, if people want to walk this trail, have access somewhere where they can
Make it
download
available.
that,
Yeah.
a PDF, and then get
Yeah.
print out. So that would be, I think, a good thing to do in the meantime, because this is much clearer than what we had originally, where you kind of guessed where you're going to go. So thank you, and I'm always talking about the great trail systems that we have here in Groton, between all the systems, the state, GOSA, Avalonia, and the town. All of them are excellent, and they all integrate very well together. So I'm looking forward to this, and I think it's a great opportunity for those of us who like to hike and just get out and enjoy the world. So, thank you. Yep.
Counselor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have one quick question. We've had issues with signs in Groton and cars. So I was wondering how cars knock them down.
Oh.
Was there any thought into placement of these signs so they're not in the way of people who don't want to drive on the road?
Yeah, we would utilize, on state roads, we utilize their guidance as to, and I'm sure that there's guidelines as to where signs can be placed, how far off the travel lane they have to be. And I'm not sure, there's probably regulations within the town as far as where signs can be placed. And so we would certainly follow whatever existing regulations. And perhaps we could put up a sign, "Do not run into signs."
I like that sign.
Yeah.
All right, that was my only question. Thank you.
Council Bordelon?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. As always, a big component of Parks and Recreation, open space and connectability. I really do appreciate looking at the signage and everything like that, and I think it just, puts us on the map, no pun intended. It really is neat to have that connectability between the city and the town. I did get out on some of this these parts I'm familiar with. My first question is, so some of the land is town-owned, some of it's just like public, and some of it's state, or could you just explain that a little further for me? That's my first question.
Yeah, so there are multiple land organizations that the signage would be on, including the state, the city, the town, Avalonia, and Groton Open Space.
I think that's really cool, and I love that kind of harmony of connectability as well as cohesiveness of organization and collaboration from state, local, private sector, right? Like it's kind of really cool. So, I was looking at this, I showed this to some of my friends who hike, and all that stuff. And they're like, oh, that's a really cool angle to kind of pull all that together and make a mapped out space for folks to use, just not in our community, but outside of our community. So from that economic standpoint, I think it's great for Groton. I love that it starts on the Navy side over in the Dallas, kind of loops up and over. So anyway, I'm really excited. I think it's great. Some people ask me about the sign, what the sign would be and all that, making sure it's not blocking, driving. Obviously, I said I'll leave it to the professionals, but I am excited and I fully support this, and I thank you for all that you do.
All set, Council Bordelon?
Thank you.
Council Fitzgerald?
I think Council Bordelon brings up a really good point, and that's my takeaway as well, is just, I think that this is really a multiplier on all those town, state, and federal assets, and it ties it all together. And so I really commend your team on putting this grant together, and can't wait to see all of it tied together, because from our angle, you have the town, what the town controls, but to the average user, they don't care whose park it is, it's just all part of one system that ties it all together. And the combination to it really shows the value of the assets. I'm curious on I realize that because that's kind of a collection of parks across town and pedestrian or bike links, are there additional pedestrian safety markers that can be added or have already been added to it? Even just like warning people that there are people going to be using this pathway along the way? Or is just the signs kind of serve that purpose itself?
Yeah, right now, it's just the signs, but we could certainly look at ways that we could try to inform those that are driving vehicles, somehow raise the awareness that they should expect to see pedestrians. Some of this is on-road stuff, some of this is off-road. I mean, it's kind of a hybrid of different modes of transportation. And yes, we could certainly look at how we could, I'm sure there's other communities that have developed greenways that are similar to this, and we could look to see what they've done from a informational perspective in raising awareness. Like, hey, don't be surprised that, you could see people out either biking, well, people can bike on the roads now. And there are, I know in the town where I live, they've put up signs reminding motorists that there's a minimum, and I think this is a state law, there's a minimum of 3 feet. You have to provide a minimum of 3 feet clearance between someone on a bike. So, I mean, we could look at incorporating something like that to enhance the safety aspect, which I think is what you were getting to.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's, in the signage itself, kind of warns people that
Right.
they're likely going to be pedestrians on the road.
Right.
Just looking at like some of the routes, it's more so just the street design, and the ones that come to mind are the Noank Road right in front of us, or even connecting down towards Mystic, just there's like limited shoulder.
Right.
And so it's more of an infrastructure issue than the signage itself, but I think that's just one of my takeaways, is the signage itself kind of declares that there are going to be bikers and people walking, and so
Right.
I see that as an added advantage.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Any other hands? Okay, roll call vote. Counsel Burrell,
Yes.
Counsel Borderline,
Yes.
Counsel Fitzgerald,
Yes?
Counselor Jones,
Yes?
Counsel McBride,
Yes.
Counsel Merritt,
Yes.
Counsel Pacino,
Yes.
and I am a yes, so that is 8-0 to 0. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Director. Okay. Next up, we have the 2026-613 CDBG, right, is that? Program Income Reuse Plan, scheduling the public hearing. Counselor Jones, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 2026-613, the CDBG Program Income Reuse Plan, scheduling a public hearing. The resolution setting a public hearing date for the 2026 Community Development Block Grant Program Income Reuse Plan and the Community Development Block Grant application. Whereas Section 104J of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, as amended, and the 24 CFR 570.489E3 permit units of local government to retain and expend community development block grants, CDBG, program income for eligible community development activities. And whereas the purpose of the program income reuse plan is to establish policies and procedures for the administration and utilization of program income received through activities funded under the state of Connecticut CDBG, specifically the town's housing rehabilitation program. And whereas the town council last approved a program income reuse plan in 2022 and must adopt an updated plan in connection with the town's proposed 2026 CDBG application for the Groton Heights School Adaptive Reuse and Revitalization Project. And whereas the town is eligible to apply for up to $2.5 million in the 2026 CDBG funding for housing rehabilitation or public housing modernization activities, and the use of program income as matching funds will strengthen the competitiveness of the town's application. And whereas the rules of the CDBG Small Cities Program require the town to hold a public hearing to solicit citizen input on community development and housing needs prior to the submission of an application for funding, and now therefore it be resolved that the Groton Town Council hereby schedules public hearings on the proposed 2026 Community Development Block Grant Program Income Reuse Plan and the Community Development Block Grant application on Tuesday, July 28, 2026 at 6:30 PM at the Town Hall Annex 134 Groton, Long Point Road, Groton, Connecticut. So moved.
Second, Pacino.
I think did we want to read that motion first, or were we just going to do the public hearing motion first?
So that actually is, part of that is the motion for the public
Public
hearings. So I think it's okay that you read that resolution. At the special council meeting that we adjourn to in a few minutes, you'll have to do some of that. But I think that also, at the end, you made it the motion to schedule the two public hearings, which is the goal of the next two agenda items. So thank you very much. See, you had practice.
Could they
Okay.
come up with shorter names?
Yes,
It's all
okay.
right.
So, I'm sorry, who seconded that? I apologize.
I did.
Counselor Pacino. All right. Director Reiner, please.
Good evening again, John Reiner, and with me tonight.
Marshall Maganga with Department of Planning, Development, and Public Works.
So, two items we're going to be talking to you tonight about. One, the CDBG program income reuse plan, and then the next agenda item, our CDBG Small Cities application. So the first agenda item, the reuse plan. So first, obviously, we're asking you to set the public hearing, which is required by state law, for that program income reuse plan. A few months back, we had talked to you about the program income reuse, that we have excess funds. The state was asking us to reuse those funds and find a place for them. And this, again, is a separate item from the CDBG application. Our program income is income that's revenue generated from prior CDBG funded housing rehab loans. We've told you before, we've been having trouble hiring the consultants and the people, the specialists, to actually be able to process a lot of these housing rehab loans, and that's why our account has gotten so big in this. It's something that we're trying to do it. There's a shortage across the state of people that can actually help us process these to loan them out. This won't be the entirety of all of our balance or our future balances if we do this reuse, but again, it's something that will make us it'll give us the ability to apply for the CDBG program, because if we have too much reserve, they won't even allow us to apply for that CDBG grant, which is the next agenda item. So just kind of linking those two pieces together. The plan must be updated in 2026 because our last plan was adopted in 2022. For our current round, they ask us to Department of Housing requires municipalities to update their plan if we intend to use this for any new type of activity, which matching funds for the CDBG grant would be that new activity. And the state is requiring us to spend down the excess balances before we apply for the funding. So us putting this in our reuse program and committing it to the grant, again, the next agenda item, would allow us to do it. Tonight, you don't have to decide on how we reuse this money. Tonight, really, the main goal is to set the public hearing, see if we get any feedback from the community, and at the next meeting after that public hearing to talk about that a little bit more thoroughly. Again, it's only one section of the plan which was included in your packet that's changing. I think I highlighted or underlined that section in the packet of the plan, which really got into the reuse for CDBG matching funds. And again, the state requires that a public hearing before the council before you can adopt any program income reuse plan or plan update. Happy to answer any questions about the public hearing for the plan update.
I just want to make note that Council Bordelon left at 8:21 PM, so we are now down to 7 councilors. And who's, Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question may apply to the next item, I'm just not sure. So if I understand what you're saying is that we have these funds already, they've been piling up, and this hearing is to look at what people might like to do with them. Your intent ultimately is probably to apply it to something to do with items mentioned in the next funding.
Correct.
But for the current, it says your intent is to use up to $250,000 in program income funds to match. So that's sort of the first pile of, the first tranche of money that's going to come out. You can do something with it.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's money that we have already in hand that the state is requiring us to spend or to commit. Otherwise, we won't be able to apply for that CDBG grant. So it's, Yes.
All right, so one is precluding the other.
Correct. So we have to commit that money to the grant and use it as matching funds, which CDBG doesn't require matching funds, but if we apply matching funds, it makes it much more competitive, so the chances of us getting it are much higher.
Okay. And have you had any success in getting people to help administer this, or?
Not really, and that's why we're in this point where now we have this excess funding through our CDBG housing rehab program that we haven't been able to loan out that money for the housing rehab program. So that's why we're looking at these other options. There were some other options that, excuse me, we were looking at as well. We had done a community survey around some of our existing resources, and the results of that were showing that the community center, Sutton Park, were not being mostly utilized by those of our population of lower moderate income. So the state said, or you can't apply the funds towards some of those potential resources. So it's right now, it's either this or we don't apply for the next round of the CDBG grant.
So the amount you will be applying for could be up to 2.5 million, and you're going to use this money as sort of a match against that to make your bid more attractive to the state.
Exactly.
And if they kind of agree, they'll go, okay, great, and you've outlined some things you might do with that money. And if not, okay, so, and then the hearing is just to kind of see where, just be more public. It's a part of the process. It's a public process. So.
Correct. It's a transparent process. We want to make sure that, we get any feedback from the community, meeting federal requirements.
I was going to say, the community survey that we did is not necessarily a true representation of the users. It's a representation of people who completed the survey. So I know there are a lot of our residents that are using the community center and other spaces. That result is just the people that participated in the survey. And so that's why we weren't able to show the 51% that is required by DOH be 80% or low in AMI. Yes.
So you weren't able to show a direct match, basically is what you're saying, between
Yeah.
who this money is initially intended for is a certain economic level, or I guess economic level, you're trying to match that, and that hasn't really happened yet, so it's.
And that was for some other potential reuse options. So, and those were because right now we have the money to use as housing rehab money. We haven't, because of the shortage of inspectors and, building specialists that help with this, we haven't been able to get enough people on board. And our own staffing, which has been, our building inspections office has been able to help us move through. But in the recent time, we've had one of our inspectors leave to go to another municipality, and our building permit activity has been through the roof. I don't know if maybe you saw it in some of our reports. Last year, we ended up our building permit revenue, I think our second highest year ever, north of like 850,000. And this year already, we're 2 weeks into the year, and we've already received, I think, about $1.2 million in building permit fees. So it's our highest year that, in the time I've been here, maybe ever, of building permit revenue. That's the activity we're getting, and we have to, manage those applications we're getting by state law. So unfortunately, our inspectors aren't able to help as much with this program as we'd hoped, because we can't find those outside parties. Bringing it back to the survey, we were doing that survey to see if we could then maybe utilize some of this rehab money for other things within the community, like improvements at either the community center or at Sutton Park. And because we didn't, the less than 50%, 51% of the people that participated in the survey were not at 80% or below of AMI. We couldn't point it towards that direction, if that makes sense.
Yep, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. The audience was wrong, and since you can't use it for those reasons.
Yeah.
So.
At least of those surveyed. So now this is an option of, we know we could use this funding as match for this grant. So then if we receive the grant for 2.5 million, we would also contribute another 250, making the total amount for that project $2.75 million.
All right, cool, thank you. All set.
Oh, I will say, sorry, depending on DOH's priorities, they may classify our match as a part of the 2.52. So instead of giving us more, and whatever other projects are happening throughout the state, we probably might get, I don't know what's 2.5 minus 313. Yeah, so they'll make that decision for us, yeah.
Right. It may cap out at that.
It may. They might allow us to apply it and have more. They might say, nope, your match, and then lower it. So it depends on the type of projects they get and their priorities.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Counselor Pacino?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is more of a clerical question for whomever wants to answer it. The date we're talking about is Tuesday, July 28th. That's a cow. We usually do these on town council meetings, which would be the 4th of August. Is there a reason we're doing this earlier?
Just because of some time restrictions, we'll hold a special council meeting that night to be able to fit it in time.
Okay. Yep, that's it.
We've done that on occasion. This isn't the first time.
For instance, we just get ready to do it tonight. We get ready to do something this evening. Any other?
Well, the difference with this one is we're actually going to have a public hearing tonight.
Right,
When we go, we don't really have a public hearing usually.
Right.
Yeah, there's a pretty short turnaround time with this. We always know generally when the CDBG applications are coming, but then when we start backing in the requirement to get, schedule a public hearing and the council meetings, sometimes we have to get a little creative with our meetings so that we get the public hearing in, meet the state requirements, and then you act on the public hearing, and then you take the council meeting later and act on that from a cow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other hands? Okay. Roll call vote. Counsel Burrell?
Yes.
We don't have to do that now.
Once I start the meeting, I have to finish it. I'm sorry, that was a yes for you, Counselor? That was a yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. She's left the meeting. Counselor Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor McBride?
Yes.
Counselor Merritt?
Yes.
Counselor Pacino?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that is 7-0. We are now on to 2026-614, and that is Counsel Burrell.
Item number 2026-614, SDGB Small Cities Grant. Make a motion to recommend the resolution authorizing Town Manager John Burke to execute all necessary documents.
I'm sorry, could you hold for one moment, please?
One second.
An updated version.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
That's right.
okay, sorry.
Sorry.
All right. So I make a motion to recommend the resolution scheduling a public hearing for the 2026 Community Development Block Grant CDBG application on July 28, 2026 at 6:30 PM at the Town Hall Annex, 134 Groton Long Point Road, Groton, in room CR1, and to authorize Town Manager John Burke to execute all documents necessary for the 2026 CDBG application for the Connecticut Department of Housing following the public hearing.
Second, Jones?
Motion made by Burrell, seconded by Jones. Questions, or actually, Director Reiner?
Sure. So very briefly, again, tonight, we're looking to just schedule that public hearing for the next, for that special council meeting. And after that public hearing, we'll be looking for you to make that motion to support submitting that grant for $2.5 million. For up to $2.5 million.
All set? Any questions? Are we, okay, seeing no hands. Counselor Burrell?
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor McBride?
Yes.
Sorry. Counsel Merritt,
Yes.
Counsel Pacino,
Yes.
and I am a yes, so that is 7-0. We will now be taking a recess to go into the special town council meeting at 8:33 PM. Okay. After we do this, and then we'll do, after we do this motion.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so technically, Council Jones already read the resolution, but I do have to go through the, where's my paper?
Was the updated version the one by?
He read the updated version, but I do have to do a roll call and declare this meeting to order for the special meeting. So I'm going to call this meeting to order at 8:34 PM. Roll call, Counsel Burrell,
Yes, here.
Counselor Fitzgerald,
Here?
Counselor Jones,
Here.
Counselor McBride,
Yes.
Counselor Merritt,
Yes.
Counselor Pacino,
That's me.
and myself, Mayor Parker. So we're at 7 out of 9. I'm going to declare that a quorum. And Counsel Jones did read the full motion, resolution. Could you please just read that last line?
You didn't read it at this meeting.
He didn't read it at this meeting, he read it previously.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Groton Town Council hereby schedules public hearings on the proposed 2026 Community Development Block Grant Program Income Reuse Plan and the Community Development Block Grant application on Tuesday, July 28, 2026 at 6:30 PM at the Town Hall Annex, 134 Groton Long Point Road, Groton, Connecticut. So moved.
Motion made by Jones, seconded by Fitzgerald. We just discussed this. At the cow? No questions? Ready to vote? Counsel Burrell?
Yes.
Counsel Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Counsel Jones?
Yes.
Counsel McBride?
Yes.
Counsel Merritt?
Yes.
Counsel Pacino?
Yes.
And myself is a yes, so that is 7-0. I take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made by Jones, seconded by Pacino. Counsel Burrell?
Yes.
Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
McBride?
Yes.
Merritt?
Yes.
Pacino?
Yes.
And myself is a yes, that's 7-0. And this meeting is adjourned at 8:36 PM. And we're going to take a 7-minute recess before entering into the next agenda item.
Thank you.
We are now returning from recess at 8:40, are we recording?
Yes.
Okay, at 8:46 PM. Counselor Merritt for item number 2026-612, please.
Item number 2026-612, Groton Heights Property Transfer Agreement with Bill Memorial Library. Motion to recommend a resolution approving the boundary line and easement agreement with the Bill Memorial Library and authorizing the town manager to make minor, non-substantive revisions and execute all documents necessary to effectuate the property transfer and related easements. Further acceptance of the property from the Bill Memorial Library is referred to the representative town meeting pursuant to Rule 6.5.3.
Second.
Boundary line
Oh.
and easement agreement land swap drawing, easement maps to state of Connecticut, location maps.
Second.
Motion made by Merritt, seconded by Fitzgerald. Mr. Burt.
I'm going to pull up a map just to make sure everybody's acquainted with the portions I'm talking about here. Give me 1 second, please. I guess it's good enough. We're looking here in the city, oops, I just jumped right up there. The city of Groton. It's being very touchy. Okay, here we are. Here is, and I'll turn the aerial on in a minute. Here is the town's former Groton Heights school property in the city. You see Smith Street here. You see the Fort Griswold monuments right next to it, just to the south of it, the Fort Griswold battlefield. And the Bill Memorial Library is right where my cursor is there. I'm going to turn on the aerial photo just so you can see it that way. And if you look in your packet, and jump ahead a little bit if you want to see what we're specifically talking about. Probably the best one is maybe for general ideas to look at page 122 in your packet, and you'll see, I'll give you a minute to get there. There you go.
Some of that.
So the blue hatched area, that is right up this area right here in the north part here. That is actually property owned by the Bill Memorial Library that has been long-term leased to the town. So it is Bill Memorial Library property. And then the red hatches you see on that map is this section right here in front, along this path leading to the old school. So let me turn that off for a minute. I'm going back to the initial page. So I'm sure we're all, we've touched on it slightly. We're all aware that the town's undertaken an extensive process to determine the highest and best use of its property at 244 Monument, being the former school. The site of the former Groton Heights Elementary School, ECHO, the Eastern Connecticut Housing Opportunities, Inc., was selected as the preferred developer. As part of that process and in the RFP, and long discussed here, we are looking at a piece of property swap with Bill Memorial Library. That goes all the way back to our first RFP to sell this property. It was back in June of 18. Prior to that being released, Bill Memorial Library reached out to the town and said they were interested in this property swap. And the town council at that time had us put it in there as a preferred option, and then reiterated that in stronger terms in the new RFP release. So under the proposed swap, swapping again, that northern area that's owned by Bill Memorial Library with the lead-in property in red hatches of the towns, the town would receive 0.41 acres from the library, and the library would receive 0.52 acres from the town. And part of what the library is looking to do, they received an ARPA grant, both from the town and from the city. They're looking at doing outdoor programming space on that. So they're not looking to develop it. As a matter of fact, there are sewer easements on that piece of property going to both the monument and the school. So you can't build anything over those easements. That's a lot of the property with the 30-foot width. So it's pretty restrictive. So they're just looking to do outdoor space, run some wiring through there to, you know, same type of thing that we've seen at Lee Mystic, at Noink Library. The, let's see. And then just a little bit, so the town would retain, we would issue a easement to the state for their portion, being from the, and one of the maps in there, if you see that, shows what that looks like for the sewer line. It branches off. It's one line coming across property, branches to both the school building as well as to the monument. The portion from the juncture would, to the monument would be, we would issue a easement to the state, and then we would retain for now maintenance of the portion to the school, which would then be turned over upon likely sale to Echo. But for now, we would hold it. Yeah, if you look on page 112, yeah, you can see how much of that property is covered in easement, the 30-foot wide easement, so it's pretty significant for those two lines. And as part of this, we wanted to make sure that any type of property change did not affect construction of the school, reconstruction of the school. So our planning staff worked with city planning staff to make sure the setbacks were correct with this swap. So this has all gone through city planning department review to make sure everything's kosher for future development of the school. So it's, again, long discussed, it's just a swap of the two properties. I should probably mention, just so you're aware of it, the piece we're receiving does have likely, I'm not giving an attorney's opinion, but likely have some restriction on it for, which if ECHO uses that for anything, would have to work through issues. It says, the deed says it's only for residents, but 2 residences. That's just that. Right now, what would likely be more like parking lot or playground, so it might not even become an issue. But just so you're aware, I don't want it, you know, I want to make sure you are aware of it. It's not, I don't believe it'll be a significant issue. Other than, you know, if they ever wanted to build another building in the future, they would have to work through a process with that. Again, there would be no development other than general outdoor education space on our piece, so that will stay open and just be part of the library property. Any questions on that? We've talked about this quite a few times.
Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor to Mr. Burt. What was the outcome of the street that's not a street?
It's still in process. It really doesn't affect us, but it's in the process. There's a paper street that was left by Jill Minor to both part of it's on the Bill Memorial, where their driveway is coming in through Bill Memorial Library. That was deeded as a future street, which was not built. So there's some restrictions on the paper street. It's not too much of an issue for us. There's no planned building on it, but we are working through it just so that's not out there. So Attorney Callahan is working on that.
Outstanding, thank you.
That one's fairly complicated to go through the process, though, to relieve us of that.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, Councilor Burrell,
Yes.
Councilor Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor McBride,
Yes.
Councilor Merritt,
Yes.
Councilor Pacino,
Absolutely.
and I am a yes, so that is 7-0. We'll be going on to the next agenda item, but I do have a question for Town Manager Burt. Just Attorney Christie, yourself, and the director?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, actually, I'll read it. I'm going to, actually, if they could both come up. And this is Agenda Item 2026-609, pending collective bargaining agreement negotiations. And before I read the motion, Director Green and Attorney Kelly.
Can you hear me?
Is it on?
Okay, there we go. Good evening, everyone. Arnisha Green, Director of HR and Risk Management for the Town of Groton, and with me I have...
Christy Kelly, the Town Attorney.
And we will be seeking to go into executive session to discuss a tentative agreement ratified with our steelworkers, or USW union.
Okay. All right. I hereby move that the members of the Town Council, along with Town Manager John Burt, Town Attorney Christy Kelly, and Director of Human Resources Risk Management Arnisha Green, go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-200, parentheses 2, and parentheses, for the purpose of discussing strategy and/or negotiations with respect to collective bargaining units. I so move.
Second, Pacino.
Motion made by Parker and seconded by Pacino. Roll call vote. Counselor Burrell.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
McBride.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes?
Pacino.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and 7-0 to enter into executive session at 8:57 PM. Okay. All right, we are now out of executive session at 9:54 PM. And Counselor Jones, please.
Do I read recommendation?
You read the motion, please.
I hereby move that the Town Council Committee of the Whole vote to recommend to the Town Council that it approve the request for funds necessary to implement the agreement between the town and United Steel, Paper and Forestry, Rubber Manufacturing, Energy, Allied Industry and Service Workers International Union, AFL-CIO, CLC, on behalf of its local 9411 for the term July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028. So moved.
Second.
Is that you or me? Okay.
The other man, you decide.
Motion made by Jones, seconded by Parker. And any questions? Are we good? All set? Okay. Roll call. Counselor Burrell.
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor McBride.
Yes.
Counselor Merritt.
Yes.
Counselor Pacino.
Absolutely.
And I am a yes, so that is 7-0. Thank you. All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, roll call quick, y'all. Counselor Burrell,
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Counselor Jones,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Pacino,
Yes.
and I am a yes, so that is 7-0. We are out at 9:56 PM. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.